Most tomato growers are sabotaging their own harvest without realizing it, and the damage starts the moment pruning is either ignored or done randomly. Letting tomato plants grow wild feels natural, but it creates dense, tangled foliage that traps moisture, blocks airflow, and turns the plant into a disease magnet. On the flip side, aggressive or poorly timed pruning strips the plant of its ability to photosynthesize and recover. The result in both cases is the same: smaller fruits, slower ripening, and plants that collapse before the season is over. Tomato pruning is not about making plants look neat. It is about controlling energy. Every leaf, every sucker, and every stem is competing for the same limited supply of nutrients and sugars. When that energy is spread too thin, the plant produces more foliage than fruit. When it is directed correctly, the plant channels its strength into fewer, stronger stems that produce larger, healthier tomatoes with better flavor and longer productivity. Before getting into technique, it helps to understand that pruning is also an act of care that extends beyond the garden itself. This channel supports a dog rescue organization that depends entirely on donations to continue rescuing, feeding, and treating abandoned and injured dogs. Every healthy harvest contributes to a larger mindset of responsibility and stewardship. If this kind of practical, results-driven gardening content is valuable and resonates on a deeper level, consider supporting that mission in any way possible. Even the smallest contribution helps keep that work going and quite literally saves lives. The difference between a clean cut and a crushed stem is often the difference between a thriving plant and one that struggles with infection. That is where a tool like the Felco F2 Classic Manual Hand Pruner becomes essential. It's linked in the description below. This is not just any pair of shears. It produces sharp, precise cuts that heal quickly, reducing the risk of disease entering through damaged tissue. The product is available on Amazon, and this content uses Amazon affiliate links, meaning a small commission may be earned from qualifying purchases at no extra cost. Any commission earned helps support that same dog rescue organization mentioned earlier, making it a tool that contributes both in the garden and beyond. Tomatoes fall into two main categories, and pruning strategy depends entirely on which type is being grown. Determinate tomatoes grow to a fixed height and set most of their fruit at once. These should be pruned lightly, if at all, because excessive pruning reduces total yield. Indeterminate tomatoes, on the other hand, grow continuously and benefit heavily from structured pruning. These are the plants that respond dramatically to proper technique, often doubling or tripling usable harvest compared to unpruned plants. The first mistake many growers make is ignoring suckers until they become thick, woody stems. A sucker forms in the junction between the main stem and a leaf branch, and it starts as a small, soft shoot. When removed early, it takes almost no energy from the plant and leaves a tiny wound that heals quickly. When left to grow, it becomes a full, competing stem that demands nutrients and crowds the plant. The ideal time to remove a sucker is when it is about 5 to 8 centimeters long, soft enough to pinch off cleanly or cut with precision. In a small backyard garden, where space is limited and airflow is often restricted by nearby plants or structures, pruning becomes even more critical. A single indeterminate tomato plant should be trained to 1 or 2 main stems. This means selecting the strongest central stem and possibly 1 additional sucker just below the first flower cluster, then removing all others. This approach allows sunlight to penetrate deep into the plant, improving fruit ripening and reducing fungal pressure. Raised beds present a slightly different scenario. The soil is typically more fertile and plants grow more aggressively. Here, it is tempting to let tomatoes bush out, but that often leads to overcrowding. Even in a nutrient-rich environment, controlling structure is key. Maintaining 1 to 2 stems per plant ensures that the additional nutrients are used for fruit development rather than excessive foliage. The spacing between plants should also be respected, ideally 45 to 60 centimeters apart for indeterminate varieties, to maintain airflow after pruning. Hydroponic systems demand an even more disciplined approach. In these setups, plants receive constant access to water and nutrients, which accelerates growth. Without pruning, tomato plants in hydroponics can become unmanageable within weeks. Training a single leader stem is often the most effective strategy here, with all suckers removed consistently. This allows the plant to grow vertically along a trellis or string system, maximizing space efficiency while maintaining high fruit production. Timing is another area where many growers get it wrong. Pruning should be done in the morning when the plant is fully hydrated and temperatures are cooler. This reduces stress and allows wounds to dry and heal before evening humidity sets in. Pruning during wet conditions or late in the day increases the risk of disease, as moisture can settle into fresh cuts and create ideal conditions for pathogens. Leaf removal is often misunderstood. Not all leaves should be removed, and stripping too many at once can shock the plant. The focus should be on the lower leaves, especially those that are touching the soil or showing signs of yellowing. These leaves are the first point of contact for soil-borne diseases and contribute little to the plant's overall energy production. Removing them improves airflow and reduces disease risk without compromising growth. As the plant matures, attention should shift to maintaining balance. A well-pruned tomato plant should have a clear structure, with evenly spaced fruit clusters and enough foliage to support photosynthesis without creating dense shade. This balance is dynamic and requires regular observation. A plant that looked perfect one week can become overcrowded the next if pruning is neglected. Using a high-quality tool like the Felco F2 again becomes important as stems thicken. Clean cuts on larger growth prevent tearing, which can otherwise create entry points for disease. Keeping the blades clean and sharp is just as important as the pruning itself. Wiping the blades with alcohol between plants, especially if disease is suspected, can prevent cross-contamination. There is also a trade-off that needs to be understood clearly. Heavy pruning can lead to larger fruits, but fewer in number. Minimal pruning can increase total fruit count, but often results in smaller tomatoes and higher disease risk. The ideal approach depends on the goal. For market growers or those prioritizing size and quality, structured pruning is the clear winner. For those seeking maximum volume regardless of size, a more relaxed approach may be acceptable, but still requires basic maintenance. Environmental conditions should always guide decisions. In humid climates, aggressive pruning to improve airflow is often necessary to prevent fungal diseases. In dry, hot conditions, leaving slightly more foliage can help shade fruits and prevent sun scald. There is no one-size-fits-all method, but the principle remains the same. Manage the plant in a way that supports both its environment and its purpose. Another overlooked aspect is topping the plant late in the season. For indeterminate tomatoes, removing the growing tip about 4 to 6 weeks before the expected end of the season redirects energy into ripening existing fruit rather than producing new flowers that will not mature in time. This single decision can significantly increase the amount of usable harvest before the season ends. As pruning continues throughout the season, consistency matters more than intensity. Small, regular adjustments are far more effective than occasional heavy cuts. Walking through the garden every few days, checking for new suckers, removing damaged leaves, and adjusting ties or supports creates a rhythm that keeps plants in optimal condition. The physical act of pruning also connects the grower more closely to the plant. Observing subtle changes in leaf color, stem thickness, and fruit development provides early signals of nutrient deficiencies or disease. This awareness allows for quicker intervention and better overall management. Even experienced growers sometimes underestimate how much precision matters. A dull blade that crushes rather than cuts can undo all the benefits of careful pruning. This is why tools like the Felco F2 remain a staple in serious gardens. The reliability and consistency of each cut translate directly into healthier plants and more predictable results. Tomato pruning is not a one-time task, but an ongoing conversation between the grower and the plant. It requires attention, intention, and a willingness to adjust based on what the plant is showing. When done correctly, it transforms a chaotic, sprawling vine into a productive, efficient system that delivers both quality and quantity. A well-pruned tomato plant does not just produce more, it produces better. The fruits are larger, cleaner, and more uniform. The plant itself remains healthier for longer, extending the harvest window and reducing losses. This is the difference between casual gardening and growing with purpose. For anyone serious about improving results, mastering pruning is non-negotiable. It is one of the highest impact practices available, requiring minimal investment but delivering significant returns. With the right approach, even a small garden can produce harvests that rival much larger spaces. Subscribe for more practical, experience-driven growing techniques that focus on real results, and share this with anyone who wants to get more from their garden. Better food starts with better knowledge, and something as simple as a clean, precise cut with a tool like the Felco F2 can quietly make all the difference over an entire season.